Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I think at this point I have been married to my wife longer than not being married to my wife. And, we've kind of crossed that path. We're 30 some years. I'm in my 60s. I've just known her for a long time. And I think back, my wife and I, we joke about how we first met. I was at a conference. I had to convince my boss that I needed to go to this conference. I didn't know my wife at this point. It was an internal conference, internal training. I need to go to this. When I showed up there, she caught my eye, and I'd actually seen her around the office, and okay, she's at this training, and she sat down next to a friend of mine, and I had to persuade my friend, who I knew was married, to move. Hey, Al, can you move? I want to sit here. And then I had to persuade my now wife, Linda, to give me her phone number. And what I'm getting at here is that persuasion is everything. If you're networking, building relationships, you need to have the ability to persuade, to influence people, to do things for you, help you. And so today I have on the program Daniel A., goes by Danny Bobrow. He's the creator of the Persuasion Blueprint, which shows business leaders how to quickly, consistently, and ethically influence prospects, teams, patients, basically anyone mastering the 3 C's of persuasion, right? He helps them with that: caring, connection, and collaboration. We'll get into that. And the content that he has is based on his nearly 40 years of experience as an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and an endurance sports enthusiast. Danny, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here.
So how did you get into influence?
Well, I think your story is pretty spot on in that influence, if it's not everything, it's pretty near everything. It's certainly necessary, if not sufficient, but certainly necessary to achieving success in most walks of life. I began in, as you mentioned, over 40 years ago. I've been in various verticals. I have been in insurance, underwriting, sales, fitness sales, management. And from the lion's share of my career, I've worked in the dental vertical, helping dental practices become more successful. And originally, our marching orders were simply to get their phone to ring, to get people to become aware of them and to express interest, and then let them take it from there. And what I learned pretty quickly, especially when we developed the tracking technology, which didn't exist when I started my but after 10 or so years, we could begin to listen to the conversations that were resulting as a consequence of the connections that we were making, that people with the best of intentions lacked the skills to effectively connect with prospective patients, customers, clients, whoever basically you're attempting to communicate with. They lack the skill, the finesse to do that in an effective and consistent manner. And so my next iteration of when I realized that getting the phone to ring, we could do that, and we could get visitors to websites, we realized we needed to help these people to do a better job converting these leads into appointments or sales. I began working on the telephone primarily. So I developed a curriculum called The Art of First Impressions, which was all about the vital importance of quickly establishing rapport, conveying empathy, asking the right questions in the right way at the right time, employing effective listening technique, and guiding the caller toward a course of action that was in their best interest. Subsequent to that, I realized that the telephone is a nice proving ground, and sort of like in New York, I figured if you could make it there, you could make it anywhere. So why not broaden this this offering beyond dentistry and beyond just the telephone. And that's how I created the Persuasion Blueprint, which, as you mentioned, is all about the reality that people make decisions based on emotion and then justify it with logic. And so the facts are going to be important. You need to be a caring individual. You need to be a talented individual. What I can do, and really all I can do, is help people become more effective at showing that caring, making those connections, and then getting onto the same side of the table as their prospective client in formulating a co-path together so that the sale is made and the relationship is cemented.
I I'm a big fan of science, big fan of social science, and just the whole notion that we are hardwired to do certain things. What caught my attention when you said um, we're sold on emotion, I think, but we
We make
justify it with
decisions
logic.
based on emotion.
Yeah, yeah, we justify it
Justify it
via
with
logic.
logic. There you go.
Yeah, and it's very very true. It's very true, and we see it in lots of forms out there. Um, yeah, so the three C's of persuasion: caring, connection, collaboration. Let's dive into each of those if we could.
Sure. Well, I touched a little bit on the caring component, which is so essential at an initial conversation with somebody, especially if you're talking in healthcare, for instance. People have a fair amount of trepidation reaching out to someone. Maybe they've had a negative experience in the past. Maybe they're concerned about finances. They're concerned about pain or what the quote bad news might be. And so, the good news is that most people in those verticals, they do care, or they probably wouldn't have gotten into that field in the first place. But to generalize is beyond healthcare. And I'd mentioned I can't teach people how to care, but what I can do is help them to harness that ability to signal caring, to eliminate what I call the care gap, which is between intention and perception. And some of the frustration I think that people experience is because they know that they care, but people don't seem to know it. So this is
Mm.
just a matter of learning a language, if you will, or perfecting the language that you already have to signal that caring by establishing rapport, as I'd mentioned, letting the person know that you understand and uh, feel their can relate to what they're experiencing. Uh, convey empathy, which is to actually let them know that you're capable of feeling what they're feeling and that it matters to you. And enthusiasm's an interesting one because I think Ralph Waldo Emerson said that no one ever bought anything without an exchange of enthusiasm. But I recently wrote a blog because what I've learned is that enthusiasm can be your worst enemy or your best friend. A lot of salespeople or anyone in a capacity, an influencing capacity, can sometimes get a little bit ahead of over their skis, if you will, by exuding too much enthusiasm too soon. And that can smack of inauthenticity or as a sales tactic. And so we work with people on how and when it's appropriate. You basically want to follow somebody else's. Through your communication, you want to give people reason to become enthusiastic. And then you sort of build on that enthusiasm. So that's a lot about what caring entails.
Can
Connection is really
can you
establishing.
just to back up? Could you provide an example of caring? I mean, just how you're coaching people to do that. I mean, is it small talk? Is it just a series of questions? And I know you're trying to generalize, but a
No,
lot of your,
it's fair
yeah.
question. Well, there are a lot of techniques that we coach people on, and I've talked about establishing rapport and empathy and enthusiasm, listening. I've learned in the not too distant past that the word listen and silent are the same word. They're just anagrams of one another. And so we really work with people to embrace silence when somebody's talking, to not jump in too quickly, let them speak. But we also employ what we call the Taffy introduction. Taffy, T-A-F-I, is short for the art of first impressions. And it's a series of statements. It's really a series of questions. And to really connect with people that you have yet to know, and who don't therefore yet know, like, or trust you, we suggest that you use this series of questions, what I call the close, open, close sandwich, which means you begin with closed probes, easy to answer questions, because in my opinion, and I think it's a fact, that you don't immediately have permission, implicit or explicit, from somebody you don't yet know to ask probing and personal questions. And so, for instance, if somebody calls a dental office, I coach that they say, "Thank you for calling Gentle Smiles, where we create confident smiles one person at a time. This is Danny. How may I help you?" And then the person will say, "Hi, I'd like to know if you are in my insurance plan, or I'd like to know if you do crowns, or if I can get a second opinion, or why the sky is blue, or why there's air." In other words, I really don't care what question they ask. The answer should always be the same, which is, "I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask with whom I'm speaking?" Now, you'll notice I said my name again, and a lot of people say, "Well, you already told them your name. Why are you telling them again?" The reason is that in 9 out of 10 cases, that person didn't hear the name.
Yeah, I
If they
agree.
did, they would use it. So I say it again. Now, you see, I've already set up sort of a quid pro quo. I'm not saying it's chilling, but your listeners can probably relate that when you call a lot of people in healthcare, it's chilling. But you could call and say, "Hi, I'd like to know if I could make an appointment with the doctor," and the first thing they say is, "Your name," which is pretty
Yeah,
off-putting in my opinion.
yeah,
And then phone number, date of birth. Those are all important questions to ask. But like I said earlier, we like to ask the right questions in the right way at the right time. So once I've gotten the person's name, I greet them, say, "It's nice to meet you. Are you in any pain presently, Mary?" Even if I don't think they're in pain, because a lot of people will think, well, you must only be asking that question to see if they're an emergency and you need to schedule them right away. Well, that's part of the information I'm getting, but the other reality is that when we ask questions, we're not only given an opportunity to receive information, we also have the opportunity to impart information.
yeah,
And that little piece of information that I'm imparting by asking if you're in any discomfort presently, Mary, is that I care.
yeah, yeah. I get it. Totally get it. Yeah,
All right. So
yeah.
it's the first 30 seconds that can make or break a conversation. Zunin wrote a book called The First 4 Minutes. I think on the telephone, it's more like the first 30 seconds. Someone's going to already get a feel for you, maybe in the first 5 seconds. Does this person care? Am I going to have a fight in front of me, or am I going to be taken care of and respected and have my needs respected?
Yeah. Okay, caring connection.
Right. Connection's about establishing credibility and earning the person's trust, your counterpart's trust. And there's a fine balance that you want to draw between too much information, because you can come off as condescending, or the person that's speaking on your behalf, if there's a receptionist who says, "I'd like to know about the work that you do in accounting," or the lawyer, and you just start rattling off a soliloquy about credentials. Well, that doesn't really connect with the person. So you really want to, again, know how to ask questions and find out why they're calling. And equally, if not more importantly, why are you calling today? In other words, you're a busy person. I'm sure you have better things to do than call me. What is it that piqued your interest and need to talk to me today? And when they tell you that, then it's a matter of employing techniques like labeling and mirroring and avoiding jargon, so that the person feels that they're being heard and respected. And then you can go on and acknowledge that what they said is important, and how what you're offering represents a connection with what they need. So it's not me telling you how great I am. It's me finding out what's important to you, and then sincerely and honestly demonstrating a match with various things that you've stated. And then we talk about converting attributes into benefits and the difference between that. And then, do you have any questions about connection, Frank, or would you like me to move on to the third?
Collaboration. Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. So collaboration, as I mentioned briefly, is about letting the person feel that you're the one that can solve their problem and that now they're going to be a participant in that solution. That's really big in healthcare, co-diagnosis. And there are a lot of things that get in the way. Sometimes a person's expertise can be their own worst enemy when it comes to collaborating with somebody. Because there's a phenomenon known as expert override, for instance, where the person, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've been working for 36 years, working with dentists to help them do a better job of attracting new patients and connecting with those patients. So it's not an unfair statement to say that I've heard just about anything that somebody's going to share with me. I've heard it 1,000 times before. But when you don't give the person the time to share their concerns, even though you've heard it all before, and maybe part of you wants to show them how smart you are by finishing their sentence and demonstrating that you already know what they're going to say, that is a missed opportunity to connect with the person and let them feel that they are a participant in the crafting of their treatment plan, building the co-path together. And you can, you know, you can elaborate, extrapolate to team members, for instance, or family members, or your teenage daughter, even. Somebody says they want to do something and say, well, yeah, I can see why you want to do that, but that's not a good idea, and here's why. I think the better approach is to say, yeah, we could do it that way, and tell me a little bit more about what you have in mind. And then you get the information from them, and then you ask questions like, well, given that we could do it this way or that way, which way sounds preferable to you? And it's really a matter of it's not manipulation. My definition of persuasion is that it's influencing somebody's opinions, attitudes, beliefs, and ultimately actions in a non-coercive manner, utilizing a number of various techniques. But at the end of the day, the objective is to help empower them to make a decision that's right for them. It's not to manipulate them, or because at the end of the day, that's gonna backfire. It's gonna hurt your
Yeah.
reputation, and this person isn't going to be glad that they followed your advice.
Yeah. When I hear you go through these three: caring, connection, and collaboration, um, my initial thought is, okay, this is a three-legged stool, but it's not a three-legged stool.
No, it's
It's
not.
sequential, right? I mean,
Well,
if you
it
don't
is,
do
but
the
it's also recursive. That's an excellent point. Is
when
that
you say
yes?
recursive, what do you mean?
Well, you can earn caring, and then you need to re-earn it.
Okay.
Or the team member can bring in another partner, and you can't take it for granted. It is sequential. You are correct. But you find that it's a matter of recalibrating frequently too. You may thought that you had made the connection, and then the person brings up a question that you thought you'd already answered. And you don't want to say, well, we've already gone through this, so
Right.
let's move on, right? You have to take them where they are, and because they may have been influenced by somebody after your initial contact too, and now their trust is not as solid as it was when you last spoke with them.
Yeah.
So these are sequential, and in a sense, they aren't.
So it's like juggling. I'm trying to find a metaphor.
Juggling's a good one.
Yeah.
You got three pins that you're juggling.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say well, I'm not an expert. I don't want to say I do these things consistently, because I don't do them consistently, but there are times where I do them and there are times where I don't, right? I'll think of a perfect example. We're recording this. It's right after Thanksgiving. This is coming out in February. But Thanksgiving, my daughter comes in. She's going to do a run. You're a distance runner, an endurance athlete. She's going to a Thanksgiving Day run, and she's got these gloves on, and it's cold. And I said, I just told her, don't wear those gloves, right? Rather than kind of coaxing her through why she's not going to wear those gloves. I mean, they had like rubber in them, which conducts heat. Um, they weren't good cold weather gloves. I mean, they're great for working in the garden, but they're not great for,
Neoprene or something.
yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, it's like, yeah, just, and whereas I could have just said, is that the best options of gloves? You consider maybe something else. I'd have to think through that based on
No,
what you're saying, but
that would have been a good question. Or
yeah,
have you used those before in the cold?
yeah, yeah.
You know?
Okay.
But yeah, no, that's a really good point. And familiarity, they say, breeds contempt. I don't know about contempt, but sometimes it's like the mindset is, you're my daughter, you know I love you, you know I care about you. So why
Yeah,
would I suggest you do anything that wasn't going to be in your best interest? But that's just not the way the mind is wired. So, the
yeah,
best approach is, have you used those before? Are those going to keep you warm, honey?
yeah. Well, if nothing else, I mean, you're right. We tend to treat the people closest to us. Well, I'll continue on with where I started. My wife's been my wife of 30 years, right? I don't snap at a new client. I might snap at my wife, right? I might be in trouble, but at the end of the week, end of the day, a long night on the couch, she's still my wife, right? Whereas but it doesn't hurt me to try and practice these things with somebody who's close to me, because if it
Right.
fails, it's
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody's a human being. And in fact, my latest blog post was on vendors and how we sometimes tend to transcend them to their function or reduce them to their
right.
function when why don't they deserve the same degree of caring? And whether and by vendor, whether it's in business or hospitality or a restaurant, the fact is that you're going to get better service. It's in your own best interest to treat them with respect and caring, but sometimes we forget that, and
Yeah.
it can be even worse with family. I just want to circle back to you mentioned that you've done this stuff and you may not do it consistently. Uh, we recognize that in our coaching, and in fact, we begin our relationship by having people take complete an assessment called the Persuasion Scorecard, where we ask a series of questions, and we ask them to answer quickly and honestly, of course. And because I'm working with lawyers now that have been in practice for 40 years, and they're much farther along than this gentleman I just met overseas who is trying to get into business. And obviously, we have to work, and we're practicing what we preach. You got to run the race at your counterpart's
Yeah.
pace, right? You got to find out. But so it's nice to get a baseline. Well, where are you now? And where do you feel, where does the assessment suggest that maybe we could improve a little bit?
Do you find there's cultural challenges? I mean, you talk about working with somebody overseas.
Absolutely. That's a
There-
great
there-
point.
well, there's probably cultural change, diversity here in the United States.
There is.
Uh,
There
people in
is.
New York, it's a
In
little,
the South, when I started working with people in the South, first of all, being a Yankee, a carpetbagger,
yeah,
I had certain prejudices even, but uh, slow talkers must be slow thinkers. Well, that's not the case at all,
right,
necessarily. In fact, in some of the training, I referenced that I'm a very quick thinker. Sometimes I think too quickly, and it took me a long time. And you're talking about a relationship with your wife. My wife doesn't think as quickly as I do. She's much more deliberate, but she's just as intelligent as I am. She just arrives at decisions and opinions in a different way than I do.
mm,
And so pacing is also an extremely important part of successful communication. And it's getting into somebody's rhythm. Sometimes you want to manage their pace. If they like a new caller that's agitated, if you use the proper pacing. And Chris Voss, who's one of my sources, he uses what's called the late night FM DJ voice,
mm,
slow people down to get them comfortable and to maybe slow their heart rate a little bit and to impart news that it always isn't always the best news to impart, but it shows a level of calm and caring that tends to generate what are called mirroring neurons so that people begin to match your pace and your emotional state. So those are just some important techniques that there's it's science, but it's also art.
yeah,
And like anything else, And this is how I've connected with more health professionals by helping them recognize that you've been trained as a scientist and you're big on clinical protocols, right? Well, of course I am. Right. And they've served you well because then you treat people consistently and you're prone to fewer errors and things are done in a much more timely way. And that's good for the patient and good for you, right, doctor? Yes, that's right. So I'm gaining agreement. And then the point I make is that all I'm asking you to do is to apply that same scientific mindset to the softer skills that are necessary for success in your practice. So, because, they look at things like communication and they don't see it as a science or as a
Yeah.
protocol.
Yeah.
And it's every bit as much a protocol as your scientific protocols too, because if in a procedure, an operation, you slavishly adhered to your protocol, you'd probably lose a lot of patients because things don't always happen exactly as planned, right?
Yeah.
They don't. So you need to have that skill and confidence to know what you're supposed to do so that you're free to think and improvise when the unplanned occurs. And it's the same thing in communication.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears here as we kind of wrap up. How can people help you? Who you looking to be introduced to? How can people get a hold of you? I've got your web address here, dannybobrow.com. We put that in the show notes, and I assume they can get a hold of you through there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked the question because really what's motivated me and made me so passionate about this is just observing in my own life, experiencing others. There's so much acrimony and missed opportunity and pain that comes from a lack of effective communication. So my mission, and I've always been passionate about what I do, but this work in the Persuasion Blueprint has just ignited a passion in me because I see so much opportunity to help people. You can help me by connecting me with people that are open to being the best that they can be. And really, I'm looking for anybody. Right now, I'm working with people that range from connecting with gaining more treatment acceptance with patients to a friend who's working to communicate better with his teenage daughter, and a colleague that's a client who's an attorney. And so I can't really think of anyone for whom this isn't appropriate. I'm working with durable medical equipment salespeople, chiropractors, accountants. So really anybody that this message resonates with, I'd be happy to talk to. And they can do the persuasion scorecard, for free, just by going to dannybobber.com. And if they decide to invest in the protocol, which is a series of 7 modules, if at any point during the process they don't think they're getting their money's worth, I will refund their investment.
Can't beat that. Well, I really appreciate your time today.
Pleasure was mine, Frank. Thanks for making it happen.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.